And we're back for more casual gaming news. This seems like it might be the week of hell for news. There's so much to go over, so we most likely will have to push some chat picks, even some regular news, to next time because there's just so much. There's so much. I have it divided into PlayStation and Xbox. There's like so much within just those two categories that there's going to be a lot of time. So we'll see around in like the 30-minute mark how far we are, and we might just only be doing PlayStation and Xbox stories. But there is a dev dub, and I will like to get to that before the end. So there is a dev dub on that. Let's start with the PlayStation section. It's slightly smaller. All right, so PlayStation doubles down on their push for live service games. This is Andy Robbins at VGC. Everything's going to be VGC as usual because we love VGC. They put their stuff up concisely, makes sense, and I support them on Patreon because they're great. So PlayStation CEO says it's not giving up on live service games despite high-profile failures. Speaking to Famitsu, the Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO was asked if the platform holder intended to carry on as before with live service games, to which he left little doubt that it did. With live service games, it's important to keep providing something on an ongoing basis. The genre itself is relatively new, and I imagine many people are trying out various approaches, so we intend to continue taking on new challenges within that context. He added, we view live service games as content that attracts users on a global scale, so we intend to continue revitalizing the market through both first-party and third-party content. We're looking beyond simply promoting new titles and are considering what can be done with older titles over the medium to long term. So even though Concord was a disaster, and they canceled the Horizon, I think they canceled the Last of Us multiplayer stuff, they're still going to be pushing for it. Helldivers is still going, which is probably like their biggest live service game right now, I think. It's interesting because it depends. It depends what quote unquote live service they plan, what type of live service, because it could be something where, I mean, theoretically you'd prefer it to be a free to play game that takes off with the microtransaction stuff, like kind of like Rivals. But it could also just be like a game where they just provide continuous content that maybe you have to pay for further on, like Destiny. It also, you know, the type of game is going to matter because, again, Marathon probably isn't going to be... If Marathon stays where it is right now, it's going to take a really long time for it to probably recoup all that stuff. So, or it could also just be canceled. We'll see. But they're going to keep going for it. Keeping on this with PlayStation. PlayStation is going to be on it for a while. They've started removing digital movies from people's libraries that have already paid for it, apparently. This is Andy Robinson, VGC. Sony is deleting over 550 purchased movies from PS5 users' digital libraries. From September 1st, 2026, all purchased content related to the production and distribution firm Studio Canal will be removed from PlayStation users' video libraries due to the end of a content licensing agreement. That's crazy. Confirm that those affected will no longer be able to access your previously purchased content. The company made no mention of refunds or compensation. So if whatever you paid for, let's say everything you purchased was from this studio, you just lost all that money and you have nothing. You have nothing to show for it. And they have a website with the full list of full library. Movies like The Evil Dead, From Dusk Till Dawn, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and TV shows such as The Young Pope and Trust Me. I don't ever heard of Trust Me, but there is a full list. And, you know, they also confirmed no disc, at least at launch, no disc version of GTA 6. So that goes in line with some of these other stories that we're going to go over. But it's actually insane that they're just deleting your libraries. They're just fucking deleting it and saying, too bad. You paid for it, too bad. Next up, let's talk about hardware from PlayStation. This is Chris Scully in VGC. Sony says it doesn't plan to sell hardware at significant losses, but is monitoring the market with PS6 in mind. So what this means is for the next console, they don't plan on putting it at a lower price. They're gonna price the console with the intent to make a profit on it, right? On the console itself. During a Q&A session held at a recent meeting, Based around the company's Game and Network Services division, one attendee asked Sony executives to provide an update on their current thinking regarding hardware pricing and profitability. Referring to the next generation platform, the attendee asked the execs whether it was reasonable to assume that your pricing will continue to prioritize profitability of the hardware as it does today. Q&A noted that it considers its hardware to be one of the most important parts of the gaming experience and that it wants to make sure users recognize the value offered by its hardware. It also stated that the company doesn't plan to sell hardware at a loss as a matter of principle, but that it's currently monitoring the market situation. Quoted saying, "First, we regard hardware as the base for providing the gaming experience, and by offering products such as the PlayStation Portal Remote Player, PS Portal, we aim to provide experiences tailored to users' playstyles beyond the living room, which has traditionally been considered the primary usage environment. As for pricing, it's not realistic for us to absorb all component cost increases, and we have already implemented some price increases outside Japan. At present, however, sales are proceeding as planned, and we do not believe this has led to a decline in customer demand." That's that's kind of wild to just assume that they don't believe it's led to a decline in demand. That's, I guess it remains to be seen how well the PS6 will sell. But like, speaking of the PS6, skipping ahead a little bit, Andy Robinson, VGC, PlayStation 6 is almost guaranteed for 2028, says one analyst. According to Ampere analyst Piers Harding-Rolls, who believes the confirmation of PlayStation's all-digital future telegraphs quite a lot of information about Sony's next-generation console, which was previously expected to arrive in late 2027. First, we believe this almost certainly guarantees that the PS6 won't arrive until 2028 at the earliest. Ampere's current expectation is that the console will launch at the end of 2028, so basically 2 years from now. The PS6 will now, at minimum, not include a physical disc drive. Sony will be looking for all the ways it can reduce the cost of its next-gen console, and this was an easy win. It's possible that an add-on disc drive could be made available to play older PS4 and PS5 games on disc. So that's all speculation from the analyst, but it's also not out of the realm of possibility at all, because this is also including information such as the PlayStation announces the end of disc games by 2028. This is Andy Robinson, VGC. Now, this is probably the most interesting story of the week, I think. So, following this date, which is January 2028, new games from all publishers will be available on the PlayStation Store at retailers in digital formats only. The transition to digital won't affect games that have already been released or will be released prior to January 2028 in disc format. They're quoted saying, as consumer preferences and broader entertainment industry continue to shift away from physical disc to digital, physical game disc production for all new games releasing on PlayStation consoles will be discontinued starting January 2028. This is a natural direction for Sony Interactive Entertainment to adapt to consumer trends, as the general preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical discs. This transition will enable us to align more closely with how most of our community prefers to access and play games today. Let me see I don't believe they said anything about third-party games. Yeah, so no confirmation on whether or not because this is just PlayStation, right? Even though Sony basically makes all the Blu-rays, there's no confirmation that other developers can't make a disc at this point. They probably won't if there's no drive, because if the new console doesn't come with a drive and the kits that the developers are getting are not disc based at all, so even the third-party developers might not even be able to make discs. Probably for the older consoles maybe, but for the newer consoles, if there's no disc at all, they're not gonna make a disc. But it doesn't confirm that other developers are not. Just the PlayStation for sure is not making discs, which is kind of crazy. And then going off of this is Chris Scully, VGC. Sony's largest PlayStation disc plant is already reassigning staff to make other products in Austria. The site in that city, Austria, produces 600,000 discs every day, but that number is expected to drastically drop following Sony's announcement that the games will no longer have physical disc releases started January 2028. Sony would release new layoffs. Known to layoffs. According to The CEO of DADC, which manufactures Sony's optical media, including PlayStation games, Blu-rays, and CDs, PlayStation currently accounts for around 50% of its volume, of which around 20% are new orders. We're looking at roughly 10% of the volume in 2028. And they've been it says they're anticipating this shift for some time. The plant's 300 employees were told on Wednesday that it would be undergoing restructuring as a result of Sony's decision. Despite this, Tanzer says no layoffs are planned. Investment on new equipment. Tech will become a new area of business for Sony. They're going to pivot for optical micro lenses, apparently, which is this stuff. Micro optics. What is that for? I don't know. It's not surprising that because like transitioning from physical to digital has probably always been something that was destined to happen. It's crazy that it's happening right now, right? And I feel like all these price hikes and everything like that is basically accelerated the process because they're just trying to make their shit cheaper. They're trying to cut costs, trying to cut corners as much as they can. Because I think it's something like it's like what? Like I think it's like 70 to 80%, something like that, of games sold are digital anyway. So, but even when you consider that, like how much are they saving? How much are they saving by not making discs? Because with discs, you're able, like, they're technically resellable, which I guess they would be losing money on, but discs usually also go on sale eventually, especially for PlayStation stuff. Digital stuff can go on sale way less. So like the same game digitally might be like $60, but if you walk into like a GameStop or something, that game might be $20. Brand new, just because of the sale. So it's interesting to see. It's like how much money are they going to be saving? But it's also still crazy. 2028, no discs. And then the last PlayStation story we have for now is that they're shuttering the PS3 and Vita stores. Yeah, because again, another thing about that, to go back to it real fast, all the digital games, look at what they just did with the movies, right? They are just deleting. They could just delete it. They could just remove it from your library and say you're shit out of luck. Obviously you can't do that with a disc, right? So it's unfortunate that we no longer have a choice. Again, the vast majority of people are unaffected because most people, myself included, usually buy digital games. I did buy a physical game recently. It was a PlayStation game. Because it was like super cheap. But the fact that we don't have the option anymore is crazy. Because then what happens with like limited run stuff? Or even like what happens with retailers that like sell discs? GameStop might be fucked in a couple of years. Because if Xbox follows suit, and we'll get to that in a second, it's gonna be tough. They're gonna be just like Nintendo shops with collectibles. But anyway, Sony's closing the PlayStation Store on PS3 and Vita. Chris calling VGC. After nearly 2 decades of supporting the PS3 console generation, we wanted to let you know we'll be closing the PlayStation Store on PS3 as well as the PS Vita. PlayStation Store on PS3 will close in select markets starting this year, followed by global closures for PS3 and PS Vita next year. New content purchases will no longer be available once the PlayStation Store closes these devices. So, not the most surprising thing. Much older consoles. So, at this point, I'm sure while it's still open, you'll find a ton of sales. So, if you do have these devices, keep an eye out. Shit might just go super, super like low cost, which is what I assume would happen. But that's kind of what usually happens. All right, let's transition over to Xbox and the overlap here. Chris calling VGC. Xbox is reportedly planning a way for players to convert their discs into digital copies. I think this was announced right after, or like almost at the same time as PlayStation saying they're doing no more discs. Imagine if Xbox, instead of saying this, were like, hey everybody, we plan on making discs forever. Like we don't plan on stopping this. So if you want physical media, come over to, like, what a W that would be if they did that. But instead, they're planning a way for players to convert their discs into digital copies. No confirmation yet that the Xbox is stopping discs, I think. But at this point, I'd be surprised if they continued it. As reported by The Verge, the feature, which is reportedly codenamed Disc 2 Digital, is being tested by internal Xbox testers at the moment. When players insert a compatible Xbox disc and install and play their game as normal, they will be then granted a digital entitlement for that game as if it had been purchased on the Xbox Store instead. Which is kind of weird that this hasn't been a thing at all lately, where it's like if you buy the physical game, you can just like unlock the digital version, because like why not, right? Why not? This means players can then remove the disc and continue to play the game as if it had been digital purchase, with all the existing benefits that entails. As such, if the digital version of the game is available for streaming on Xbox Cloud Gaming, players with a Game Pass subscription will be able to stream it. If it's Play Anywhere title, you get access to the PC version. The feature is intended to work for Xbox Series X and Xbox One, but not the 360 or original Xbox, which I guess that makes sense. They're much older compatibility on that. In order to prevent widespread sharing of each game, the digital entitlement will also be tied to each disc. This means if a player gives their disc to a friend, trade it in, or try to play it with a different Xbox profile, the digital entitlement will swap over from account to account. Discs will reportedly continue to work after they've been installed, and players will only lose their entitlement to keep playing the disc if it's given to a friend or sold to someone else. It came the same day that Sony announced it will no longer make discs. This is kind of crazy. Again, still no confirmation if Xbox is going to follow suit with PlayStation. I would be very surprised if they don't at this point. But I mean, this is kind of cool to see, but also concerning at the same time. Because I feel like this, again, should have been a feature a long time ago. They hate people sharing, and I think they just hate people. That's what it is. They all hate people. Moving on from there, let's talk about Game Pass. Jordan Midler, VGC. Xbox reportedly pausing new third-party Game Pass deals. This is wild. While Xbox Game Pass has largely sold itself on the inclusion of first-party Microsoft games at launch, the service has also been home to many third-party titles, both AAA and indie. Specifically in the indie space, these Game Pass deals have often been lauded as a way to mitigate risk for developers, offering guaranteed money rather than facing market uncertainty. Speaking on the Business of Video Game podcast hosted by Shams Georgiani, CEO of Arrowhead Game Studio, Rizzo alleged that those Game Pass deals may be slowing amid an uncertain period for Microsoft's gaming brand. Quoted saying, "I was at a trade show in Italy, had some nice lunches, some nice dinners with industry colleagues. Word on the street was that loads of people who were in the frame for Game Pass deals, nothing was inked yet, but the deals were in advanced discussions. Everybody got the rug pulled out from under them. New deals are kiboshed, and they're on pause. I think they're figuring it out. That's my read anyway. But yeah, for the time being, it seems like a Game Pass deal, like we just did one at Caboodle earlier in the year. I get the feeling that it might have been one of the last ones they did. This is another concerning thing, because this is part of Xbox reset bullshit. So I think they're trying to be a little bit more picky on the projects they greenlight for Game Pass, which is also concerning, because it's also not only a way to mitigate uncertainty, but also for developers to get their like cool little games out, right? Because a lot of indie games, some of the best games ever have been indie games. But Xbox also announced a bunch of layoffs. And we're going to start here with the union response. Chris Scully, VGC. Ahead of expected mass layoffs, union says Xbox staff will not be treated as disposable. I don't think he's saying like, yes, they're not going to be treated. I think he's saying like, you better not treat us as disposable. I think that's the tone of that one, I think. Earlier this month, Xbox CEO Asher Sharma revealed Xbox resetting, yada, yada, yada. Press conference held by the Communications Workers of America has gathered a selection of Xbox staff members across a number of unions and studios, giving them a chance to publicly express their views on the current situation. As reported by Kotaku, the call was introduced by CWA District 9 Vice President Frank Arce, who said Xbox workers will not be treated as disposable, referring to Xbox's recent decision to increase console prices. He says the money is there. Leadership is simply choosing where it goes and who pays. Other staff during the conference also argued that Microsoft had the money to avoid layoffs, with United Video Games Workers Representative Shirveen Uduana noting that Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella was paid $96.5 million last year. This dude got almost $100 million. Diablo 4 senior environmental artist Mahreen Fatima also noted that the company has spent billions in AI tech, arguing that Microsoft is choosing not to protect us, which sounds accurate and is visibly accurate. Calls were made for layoff protections for all Xbox staff, not just those who are part of a union, such as advance notice of layoffs, 2 years of recall rights, and hiring freezes. We're done paying for executive failures, added QA tester Andrew Snell, who said Xbox unions would resist future layoffs. I think it's also something, I forgot where else I saw this, where they were trying to also work out a deal where if people are laid off, that they have the opportunity like to get their jobs back if they reopen, stuff like that. I'm not sure if that's actually what's going to happen though. So let's go over what's supposedly on the chopping block. And this is going to put the entire Xbox showcase that recently happened in a whole different perspective when you look at all this stuff. First one, Andy Robinson VGC. State of Decay 3's Undead Labs is apparently on the chopping block, supposedly. Named as another Xbox studio facing closure. This is an Xbox studio, right? This is Xbox. Again, with the resetting and the original developers, Compulsion, Double Fine, Ninja Theory. The studios were set to have entered negotiations to go independent in an attempt to avoid being closed, sources say. Now a fourth studio at risk is being named by GamesBeat as State of Decay 3 developer Undead Labs. According to the publication, the Seattle-based studio is also searching for a buyer with around 110 jobs at stake if it fails to do so. Other divisions such as Blizzard, Bethesda, and others are expected to be hit with percentage layoffs, according to GameBeat. This is likely the biggest single-cut series for Xbox, according to its sources. Acquired in 2018, 8 years since, is yet to release a new title on Microsoft. That's actually surprising. With State of Decay 3 announced in 2020. Next, again, another surprise here. Arcane. Another devastating blow to Blade in general. Right? Blade can't catch a fucking break. Andy Robinson VGC. Xbox set to close Dishonored and Blade studio Arcane and cuts. Oh, man. France-based Arcane Studios, best known for Dishonored series, is also facing closure if Microsoft is not able to find a buyer for the studio. Quoted saying, from the Verge, sources tell me Microsoft wants to cancel Blade as part of a wave of cost cuts and job losses that are planned for the company's Xbox gaming division. Blade was originally supposed to debut later this year, according to sources familiar with the game's development. I'm told the internal ship date for the game slipped to late 2027 and is also running over budget. Of course it is. Everything is. Expected to announce the extent of the layoffs next week, which The Verge believes will lead to studio closures or spin-offs, potential studio mergers, and canceled games. This is crazy. This is so insane. And now, like, if they do cut ties with Arcane, and Arcane had Blade, do they keep Blade? Or I don't think they let Arcane make Blade after that, right? Yeah, Diablo 4 Senior Violence was the same thing that the AI stuff. Who gets, like, I'm sure they paid Marvel a shit ton of money to get the rights to Blade, right? That's going to be an interesting decision there. Next, and even what might be one of the biggest surprises, IO Interactive. Chris calling VGC, IO Interactive facing layoffs as it cuts ties with Project Fantasy publisher Xbox. This is nuts. It's ended its relationship with the external partner for the in-development game Project Fantasy. I think it was a mystery until it was kind of confirmed. Online Fantasy RPG has been in development with an as-yet unannounced partner, but internal documents shared as part of the FTC versus Microsoft trial in 2023 suggested the partner was Xbox, with the game set to be an Xbox exclusive. Update was Bloomberg confirmed it was Xbox was the publisher. IO Interactive will continue to develop the game, it claims, but will have to find other funding or publish the game itself. This is nuts. Let me just, I guess I gotta check one thing. Hold on, let me check one thing. Because fucking, 007 was a pretty thick hit. 2.7 million copies in the first week. And it's very highly rated. And now IO Interactive is facing cuts. Welp. This is a wild time. This is a wild time. Let's talk about the response from Xbox to all of these cuts. This is Xbox's direct response after all this stuff was announced. Andy Robinson VGC, amid huge expected cuts, Xbox claims we're not reducing our investment in games. That's what they say. That's what they say here. The comment was made by a spokesperson in relation to the end of a deal with Hitman Studio IO Interactive, which confirmed on Tuesday that it had lost an external partner for an in-development RPG. Again, IO Interactive getting affected by this after releasing 007, which am I crazy? That was IO Interactive, right? Yeah, IO Interactive. And how well that game has done and how highly rated it was, like, across the board, and they're still affected by it. Like, what do you want? what do you want? What can anyone do? Everyone has to release a GTA? Does everyone has to do that? That's the only way? It's impossible. Oh man, speaking of Bloomberg, an Xbox spokesperson said it was taking a fresh look at where we invest, so we're focusing on our highest priorities. We're not reducing our overall investment in games. We expect to invest about the same in content as we did last year. What's changing is where we're investing and the kinds of projects we're backing. Microsoft's claims come ahead of expected significant job losses. Xbox Subs will begin July 6th, 3 days from now. And they go through the developers again. I believe that the shift in money is going obviously more towards AI. But I'm wondering if their plan is, instead of spreading the money across many, I think they're just probably narrowing down the projects that they're putting money in, and those projects maybe get more money divvied out. But still, that's kind of nuts, because the repercussions of everything to get to that point is devastating. But don't worry, chat. Don't worry. One glimmer of hope. One tiny glimmer of hope in all of this. The Hideo Kojima game seems allegedly still fine. Andy Robinson, VGC. Hideo Kojima's Xbox exclusive horror game reportedly safe from Microsoft cuts. OD will survive. That's according to IGN, which claims the project will survive Xbox planned business reset, which has so far already seen a drop of planned fantasy. We talked about that already. OD remains in development at Kojima Productions and will still be published by Xbox Game Studio. In a statement published on Tuesday, Xbox said it was taking a fresh look at where we invest, yada, 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 not reducing. Last shown at Kojima Productions event in last September, OD is described as a complete new gaming experience. I think they showed that cool trailer with the candles and stuff, which was nice. So, hey, this is okay. This is okay news. This is super okay news right now. But yeah, let's see where we are. All right, yeah. So I think we're gonna just do the larger news stories today, and then the rest of this I think we'll push to next week. But we'll see where we are. But that's it for the major platforms. Not a lot of Nintendo news that I could find. So let's talk about overall big news now. This is Andy Robinson, VGC. As Xbox Series X hits $800, Lenovo warns memory prices will likely never return to normal. And that's just a gut punch. The electronics firm made the comments during a presentation by Executive Director Martin Heigl at the ISC conference in Germany this week. Reportedly told attendees that DRAM and NAND prices will not return to their previous levels for a long time, even after significantly increased production capacities implemented. The exec said that prices will likely never fall back to the levels seen a year ago, which is crazy, because a year ago they were still high. However, the never comment was poorly exaggerated, and Heigl was likely referring to the next 5 years and a little beyond. Comments come in the same week that Microsoft claimed that memory prices have increased by more than two and a half times this year, and that it expects another doubling by the end of next year. Yeah, that's where everything is going. And they raised the price of the consoles. By the way, chat, this is not just like. Well, let's finish up the follow-up here first before we get into that. Follow-up is there is a lawsuit against the RAM makers, Chris Scully and VGC. RAM manufacturers have been sued for allegedly fixing prices and supply leading to increased costs. The 3 large RAM manufacturers in the world are being sued. As reported by Law 360, a class action lawsuit filed by a proposed class of individual and business consumers accuses Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron of playing a large part in what is being dubbed as Ramageddon by the media. The complaint alleges that the 3 companies, which make almost all of the world's supply of DRAM, have been working together to fix component prices while reducing supply. This sounds entirely possible. Shit like this has happened all the time. We've seen like just regular like stores, like Target, Walmart, stuff like that. We've seen them do stuff like this. So this is not like anything new. It accuses the trio of reducing its supply of DDR3 and DDR4 RAM, leading to a sharp increase in price for consumers who use it, and focusing most of its production on HBM, a high-cost, high-bandwidth form of 3D stacked DRAM, mainly used in AI data centers instead of consumers. The DRAM oligopolists have simultaneously cut production, coordinated a pivot to HBM and exit from DDR3 and DDR4, and otherwise decreased and locked up conventional DRAM supply while prices charged up with mind-blowing scale and rapidity. It argues that as DRAM shortages led to prices rising, still Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron continue to squeeze conventional DRAM supply, simultaneously and publicly directing their resources toward less profitable per diem HBM, or in some cases simply junking conventional DRAM supply channels altogether. The plan is working as consumer purchasers of conventional DRAM and devices incorporating have paid supra competitive prices and have otherwise suffered the impacts of a distorted market crippled by the behavior of DRAM oligopolists. Prices climbing at that rate pull supply toward them. At least one of the three should have seen the rising prices and decided to focus its output on the product. That's true. Like, if there's multiple manufacturers, someone should just be like, hey, we're going to just focus on the older stuff and be fine. So hopefully begging that something good happens of this, because like I was starting to say earlier, this is not just video games and computers, right? This is going to be applied to everything. Apple just increased the prices of everything across the board except for like watches and like other small accessories, stuff like that. All of their computing devices all went up. I think even the small speakers went up. Even the things that don't necessarily have the same type of RAM have gone up. Allegedly, it's because they're trying to offset the prices of everything that does have the RAM. So this is going to be everything at some point. It's going to be TVs. It's going to be any electronical device that can, I think any electronical device that can connect to anything. Any connectivity device is going to go up in price. No, like, because this affects everybody. And instead of fully increasing the prices, they're going to increase prices across the board to make up for such high prices. You might see the accessories to the gaming consoles go up in price, right? Maybe the new sets of controllers are $100 each to offset the console price. Like, that's going to happen. Like, this stuff's not going to get better. This is only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. It's an insane time we're living in. Man, it sucks. Let's talk a little bit about Star Wars Eclipse, because there was an original story here, and your opposite VGC. There is an update to this though. Star Wars Eclipse in danger of cancellation, claim striking Quantic Dream developers. Employees of the French developer staged a strike this week outside its Paris HQ this week. The focus of the protest was Quantic Dream's alleged plans to lay off around 115 workers following the failed launch of multiplayer game Spellcasters Chronicles. Crazy. The free-to-play multiplayer game was closed early this month, after which Quantic Dream confirmed it had initiated what it called an internal reorganization. Speaking to Game Cult, some of the protesting workers said that the strike was also an attempt to save Star Wars Eclipse, which they claimed the studio would not be able to complete without the 115 workers allegedly set to be cut. That's crazy. They started working overtime on Eclipse shortly after the layoff plan was announced. It's far from being an act of sabotage. On the contrary, we're trying to save Star Wars Eclipse, said Jules, a developer working on the game. We could manage to release it with 115 additional people, and that wouldn't be overstaffed. It's what's needed. We are understaffed, like in many other companies in the sector, because bosses know very well that passion will lead people to crunch time and that games will eventually be released, but it's impossible to run a sustainable industry like that. We believe that, as things stand, the game literally cannot be finished if the redundancy plan is implemented as currently scheduled. We absolutely need the 115 people who have been inactive for almost a month. That's a whole month of lost production. During that month, employees could have been trained on the specific tools of Star Wars Eclipse. So there wasn't a follow-up to this. The developer denies that it's in trouble. Like, flat out. This is Andy Robinson, VGC. In a statement issued to IGN, Quantic Dream now denies that Star Wars Eclipse will be affected by its planned cuts. The studio said development on the game was continuing as planned with all necessary resources to complete it. As previously stated, the development of Star Wars Eclipse remains unaffected by the recent closure of Spellcasters Chronicles. A decision driven by the challenging market conditions, copy pasta, Developer of Star Wars Eclipse is continuing as planned with the full commitment of its team and all the necessary resources to complete its mission. Our priority is to ensure that employees affected by the restructuring process receive the appropriate support, care, yada yada, copy paste. But who are you gonna, Chad? Who are you gonna believe? Are you gonna believe a statement from the head of the developer team, or are you gonna believe the workers that are on strike saying, "Yeah, we're the ones making the game. We know what it's gonna take to finish it, and cutting these people is the wrong decision." Who are you gonna who are you gonna believe? It's up to you. But I believe the strikers. Yeah, I think this will be the last news story before we do the dev dub. The last big news story. There is a lot. I'll go over like the headlines for the smaller stuff, but we'll get into them next time. All right, so this last story is going to be about Rockstar. Uh-oh. Chris Scullion, VGC. GTA 6 staff accused Rockstar of growing gender pay gap, no bonus transparency, and normalizing crunch. What a surprise. 3 members of the Rockstar Game Workers Union have listed a string of complaints about their employer to game developer, including lack of transparency around pay and bonuses, a widening gender pay gap, and mandatory crunch. According to the staff who requested anonymity, obviously, a considerable portion of most employees' pay comes from in the form of bonuses, but Rockstar is often inconsistent with how much and why these bonuses are paid. Quoted saying, "When the bonus is particularly good, it can be a windfall, but often the bonus is disappointing and one can end up being paid considerably less than expected for the year. The reasoning given for this is often nebulous, inconsistent between departments, and even inconsistent between team members within the same department, and sometimes hinges on completely subjective or retroactive criticisms. They also claim that because bonuses are all completely discretionary for the company, staff feel they have to always be ready to be as pliable as possible to their boss's whims in order to keep them happy and ensure their bonus. Imagine how you might feel if a fifth of your salary could be withheld without any justification or basis on a single surprise factor." Also told the publication that initiatives had been put in place to address the imbalance in median pay between staff of different genders, but that those initiatives were then scrapped as the gap has actually widened instead. That's kind of crazy. Building crunch into the workers' contracts is an insane thing. Part of the problem with crunch is that there is not an agreed definition, and now it seems the company thinks that offering specific and limited compensation as an incentive for overtime means it no longer qualifies as crunch. "We strive to make the best games possible by giving our talented teams world-class work environments and ongoing career opportunities," from Take-Two. "We have fostered a culture which is focused on teamwork, excellence, and kindness, and where we support and reward the team across all levels of the business through competitive compensation and benefits policy." Bullshit. I call bullshit. So this is also very interesting because does GTA 6 get released if the workers go on strike? Is it possible for the workers to strike and cause a delay in GTA 6? I don't know. I feel like it depends how far in development it is. Again, we still haven't seen any new trailers, any new gameplay. My thinking, again, I'm not someone in the weeds. This is probably a question for Jason Schreier. Maybe they're like still like waist deep in the coding of the game and they're still trying to get it to work. If that's the case and they go on strike, I think the game doesn't come out this year. If the workers start going on strike, which would be probably devastating for everybody, right? I mean, they should, if they're being treated unfairly, they should go on strike. Fuck the game coming out. They should be treated better. But imagine all the people that don't pay attention to this stuff who are just assuming, yeah, GTA is coming out in November. The same people that were like, yeah, GTA is coming out next year in like 2020. The amount of people, but side note, the amount of people when I worked at a certain store that sells video games that were like, yeah, GTA, the next GTA is coming out this year, right? I heard. I was like, I don't think there's any confirmation at all. I would be surprised if we maybe hear something next year and maybe get a release date the year after. And they would always look at me and like laugh and be like, yeah, okay, what are you talking about? And guess what? It's still not out yet. Guess what? Guess who was right? The one that pays attention. People are weird. Okay, so we'll see what happens with this going forward. But lastly, actually, let's go over the headlines real fast. Some of the stuff we're gonna push till next time. CEO of Supermassive steps down. Dragon Age creator shits on AI. That's great. a quick update. Okay, we can do this real quick. A quick update on the Stop Killing Game stuff. It did not pass the Senate at this go around, so that's unfortunate. 43-16 is kind of a terrible thing. I assume they're gonna try it again. Yeah, I think they're gonna keep pushing for it, but the first round, the Stop Killing Games did not go through. So a silly story about the G brand companion cube. This one we can go through as quickly as well. Onimusha got pushed up. I believe, where is it? 3 weeks earlier. So what's the date on that? Released on September 4th. So it originally was on the 25th. Onimusha, which was the same day or the day after Control and Silent Hill, is now going to be the 4th, which is the day after Orbitals and Dawnwalker, the Blood of Dawnwalker. So I'm gonna edit that in my calendar. Save. All right, that's been moved. So pushed up. That's cool. I mean, it gives a little bit more breathing room, but yeah. Steam Machine, Red Line of Death, Epic CO still sucks, and then an interview with someone that made a Suicide Squad and that they basically don't want to make games anymore. We'll go over that stuff next time because we're already long into this one, over 45 minutes. As far as the raw recording. But chat, let's hit that dev dub because there is one shining light this week. Hopefully something shows up next week again. This is Chris Scully in VGC. Dev dub for this week. CEO of Professor Layton Studio Level 5 says staff get big pay raises for correctly answering quizzes about its games. According to Level 5 founder, CEO, and president Akihiro Hino, who revealed that the company's policy in a recent interview with Famitsu, the Professor Layton, Nino Kuni, and Inazuma 11 studio boss, was explaining to the publication that there were no plans to expand the size of the company beyond the roughly 320 staff it currently employs. To which he was asked if it was still conducting interviews to hire new people. Generally, I only conduct the final interview, but this year I also participated in the first round of screenings. The reason is that I wanted to redefine our criteria for what it means to select people. When asked for more information on this, Hino explained, we conduct something like a content knowledge test, and employees who score high receive a pay raise of about something yen, regardless of their career level. We handle this fairly even for new hires, and we're planning to raise this amount to another undisclosed amount in the future. So cool. Hey, that's actually a great way. You know your shit, you get better pay, and that's fair across the board. If the next round if that round you didn't get a lot, you just learn more shit. Next round you get more, so that's cool. I like that. So that's a W. That's a W for those devs. They get at least a fairly easy way to make more money, right? And they seem to be pretty safe because it doesn't sound like he's doing any plans of expansion or downsizing, which is great news in the industry right now. But that is going to be it for this week's casual gaming news. It was a lot, and there's more, but we'll get to the rest of it next time. Thank you all that hung out during the live version of this. Check out the links in the chat. YouTube, Twitter, Discord, TikTok. This should be up on Sunday, the regular Sunday, as long as I can get to it fairly quickly tomorrow. We'll see, because tomorrow is the 4th. But yeah, Sunday should be up. Apologies for the late post last week. There's a lot going on. But that's it for this week. Thank you again, everyone, for hanging out.